Welcome everybody, and it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Viola today for a talk in our Human Evolution and the Paleolithic talk series. And I should probably say a few words on Viola's background first. Viola is now based at the Austrian Archaeological Institute here in Vienna, and also part of HEAS. And Viola, I think I can say, started up her Paleolithic career at our Willendorf excavation. So she joined in our first season, and then yeah, I think she became part of our dream team, running with us the site for years. Viola then moved on for a master and a subsequent PhD to Tübingen, to Nick Conrad's team, and then switched her main focus of her work to Southern Africa. I think it's still the main focus of her work up to now, probably. And after the PhD, Viola did a number of different contracts. Just want to mention here a short contract here at the Austrian Archaeological Institute, but also a contract or a postdoc at Geneva in Switzerland. And finally, in the last year, basically, a postdoc at Leiden University with Gerrit Düsseldorf's team. And that's also the work I think you're talking about today. So before I talk much more here, I leave the stage to you for a talk on shifting gear, new results on the Southern African Middle to later Stone Age transition from Umhlatuzana rock shelter. Thanks, Viola.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be able to present on our work at Umhlatuzana rock shelter. So this is what I'm going to do today. But before I start, I briefly want to give a background to the research history, just to make everyone remind of that. So these two very important scientists are Goodwin and van Rietlohe, and in their pioneering monograph from 1929, they gave away, so to say, this tripartite system of the early Stone Age, Middle Stone Age, and later Stone Age. And today we are going to speak about the Middle to later Stone Age. Since the work in 1929, a lot, of course, has been achieved in Southern Africa concerning the Stone Age sequence, concerning the chronocultural framework. And the latest update, I think soon a new update will come forward, but this is the latest update on the chronocultural sequence published in 2012 by Lombard et al. I will shortly explain the most important techno-complexes that we can grasp in the archaeological record, just to make you familiarize with it again. So one is from MIS5, is the so-called MSA2 or Mossel Bay. Hello. This was defined at the site of Classes River. And what is very typical, or what we can see in the archaeological record, is that there is a focus on the production of triangular flakes, points, and blades. And interestingly, this was found at several other sites, such as Deep Kloof Rock Shelter, Blombos Cave, and Pinnacle Point. Another important techno-complex at the border, so to say, between MIS5 and MIS4 is the Still Bay. Maybe you've heard of it already. It's very famous due to its iconic lithic implements, this bifacial Still Bay points, this wonderfully shaped laurel leaf-shaped points, and gave us an example here, this really wonderful bifacial points from Blombos Cave made on silkry. And what they found at Blombos Cave, this was published by Moore et al. In 2010, is that at the final stage of the shaping process, heat treatment was used to improve the properties of the material, and then they used pressure flaking to really shape this wonderful or almost perfect tip. but to not, it will be a lot about lithics today. So just to tell you also a little bit about the other or the non-lithic categories. So the still base is also said to be a very innovative phase, and this is due to several findings that you can also see here. For example, this perforated shell beads from Blombos Cave. Then here this engraved ochre, also from Blombos Cave, the so-called ochre processing toolkit, also from Blombos Cave. And here, this is the oldest drawing in the world. This is a stiltcrete flake with, on the platform, this cross-hatched drawings made with an ochre crayon. But to mention also other sites, and also the other still-based sites have a lot to offer. And for example, here I want to mention Deep Kloof Rock Shelter, where they found different phalanges, tarsals, metapodials that show cut marks. And these are from different phalines. And this was interpreted as, or it of course proves that there's skinning involved, and it maybe also involves fur production. Then following the stilbay, there's the house and sport, which is from a lithic technological point of view very interesting, because there are these backed pieces that are part of composite tools that can be hefted in projectile technology. And the production, very specific production, which you can see here. These are the typical cores, blade cores, and this production of very fine blades. Also the house and sport has other interesting items to mention. Here from Classes River, there's also one from a site called Sibudu Cave. This is a bone point. Use-wear analyses were done, and also residual proof that the most likely interpretation is that it's a bone point. This is experimental in the middle, but adhesives were found in house and sport context, and this beautiful fragments of ostrich eggshell containers that show engravings are from Deep Kloof Rock Shelter. In the post-house and sport, this is from a site called Sibudu Cave, mentioned before. This shows different kinds of unifacial points or unifacial tools with different characteristics that Nicholas Conant defined and I defined in 2012. You can see here this, how should I say that, this nice unifacial points that are called tongatis with this little roof tip on top. Then these elongated pieces are called nedvetves. So the cycle is here more towards reducing the width, and here natural backed tools. In the final MSA, which is most typical of KwaZulu-Natal, so in the eastern part of Southern Africa, you can see this very typical hollow-based points and this more wide-shaped segments, backed pieces. Now, this was where the most important technocomplexes from oldest to youngest in the Middle Stone Age. Now we switch to the later Stone Age. The flesh is the symbol for the big technological change that is observed in the archaeological record. So what we see in a time period, let's say between 40 to 20,000, is a trend towards miniaturization, microlithic technologies. There's less predetermination in the core production, so less prepared cores and more expedient production. There are less formal tools, so there's an impoverishment in the formal tools. And there's increasing importance, we can see this, for example, here at Eland's Bay Cave, in bipolar and anvil technology. So this is a little bit of phase of technological fragmentation. A lot is going on. It's not all at the same tempo. But then in the second phase of the early, later Stone Age, so to say, the Rawberg, this is the full expression of this miniaturization process. As you can see here in Eland's Bay Cave, quartz was used. There's a lot of bipolar and anvil technology involved as well. A lot of different reduction sequences that lead to bladelets, to small elements. And here in Rose Cottage Cave, this is made on chert, so there's less bipolar and end mill technique involved, but a lot of bladelets as well. Okay, this was the short background to the Middle and later Stone Age in Southern Africa. So now let's come back to Umhlatuzana rock shelter. So you can see it's in the eastern part of Southern Africa or South Africa. It's 35 kilometers interior of Durban. It's called after the river that's passing by the side, the Umhlatuzana River. And the province here is called KwaZulu-Natal, and other important sites in, let's say, the closer proximity are Sibudu Cave and Umbelibeli. Border Cave, also in KwaZulu-Natal, is a little bit further to the north. The story or the research background to Umhlatuzana is that in 1982, a first test trench was excavated, so the site was known, and then this highway that you can see here is the N3, and this was enlarged. So it kind of started, the whole excavation in 1985 started out as a rescue excavation because of this expansion of the highway, the N3. So it was excavated by Jonathan Kaplan, and he excavated 6 square meters. So this is the mod sounding. So this was the first one in 1982. And then Jonathan Kaplan excavated 6 square meters here in the middle of the cave. And here you can see the sequence that he excavated or that he described. So what he found is, first, I'm not talking about the Holocene layers, but there are also Holocene layers. There's Iron Age and Holocene later Stone Age. I really will focus on the Pleistocene part of the sequence. So what he found is a late and early Rawberg. What he described, he mostly differentiated the two because of the dates. So the late Rawberg dates around 13,000. They used charcoals for the datings, and the early Rawberg dates around 27,000. Here you can see then what Kaplan called the MSA-LSA transition, and you can see this beautiful hollow-based points in the lower part, and on top different sizes of segments. Following this MSA-LSA transition, Kaplan defined a late MSA with typical unifacial points. Then also in Umhlatuzana there's a Hausen sport with typical segments of different sizes on quartz and hornfels. And the lowermost part of the site, which Kaplan called pre-Hausen sport, later a study done by Lombard et al. In 2010 could show that that they are typical bifacial points or bifacial pieces. So it was then called a stilbe. And what is very, very interesting about Umhlatuzana, I will not go into details, but you can see I get very excited about this, are here these serrated points that might point to even another stage in the MSA sequence of Umhlatuzana. Okay, so Umhlatuzana sounds very interesting, was already found in 1985, but never made it to an important reference site. And why is that? This is because Kaplan found in the sequence, you can see it also, that there's a color difference here. And Jonathan Kaplan had the hypothesis, I mean, he had to explain this somehow. And for him, he explained this in a way that he suggested it's he called it a rotational slipping, a one-time event where large slumping of deposits took place. Of course, after he stated that, the site lost credibility or never gained credibility and was a little bit neglected by the scientific community, or it's always considered, but always with caution. So it's, yeah, this was the problem with Umhlatuzana. But then a team from Leiden University within the project finding resolution for the middle to later Stone Age transition in South Africa, under the direction of Gerrit Disseltorp, whom you can see here, started new excavations at the site with the main goal to understand the site formation processes, to understand the geoarchaeology. And you can see here, I hope both of them are also in the audience online. This is Irini Sifogeorgaki, and she is working, or she's the PhD student, soon to be finished, that worked on the geoarchaeology. And what they could show in this program with the geoarchaeology, I think it's not exaggerated to say that it's maybe one of the best geoarchaeological studied site in South Africa, next to Zibudu Cave. And I think they could show very profoundly that there is no indication of large scale sediment movement. Of course, there is small scale bioturbation and so on, but this large scale slipping event did not take place. Luckily for me, so this meant a lithic technologist was needed to now describe the cultural sequence, because now this, how should I say, this myth, this legend of that it's completely disturbed is not true anymore. Just to explain, this color difference is a reality that's really like that. But Gerrit and Irini published a paper this year, and they could show that it has to do with moisture. So coming closer to the cave wall, there's a higher content of moisture. But if you dry the sediment and then look at both different sediments from this darker and lighter part, it's exactly the same. So it's just a difference in moisture, not a slipping event. Good that this is clarified. Now I can ask my questions. So the main important questions were, what are the technological and techno-economic diagnostic features now for this upper Pleistocene part of the sequence? And then more specific, are there any trends within the Pleistocene later Stone Age of Umhlatuzana? What is the history behind this MSA-LSA transition? And then what can I say about the late MSA that Kaplan defined? And on the long run, so to say, or the overarching question is then, what can Umhlatuzana contribute to a comprehensive understanding of the chronocultural Stone Age framework in the region of KwaZulu-Natal? So what I did is I studied this upper Pleistocene sequence. I studied, so the site was excavated in spits. I studied spit 15 to 61, which concerns the layers P1 to P10. The names of the layers consist, so you can see the Holocene part H, the units are called H, and then the Pleistocene part P, group P. So I studied P1 to P10. This is the number I studied, almost 2,800 pieces, and with a full component of 4% and 2.3%, of course, the rest is blanks. Maybe to mention, because we knew from the description of Kaplan that there is a Rawberg or a later Stone Age component, and we knew that quartz is very important and platelet production, we changed our cutoff size for quartz from 20 millimeters to 10 millimeters. So for all the other raw materials, which are sandstone and hornfels, it's 20 millimeters, and for quartz, it's 10 millimeters. So coming to the results, so what we could show is that there are trends within, or there are different raw material tendencies in the Pleistocene later Stone Age. So in the earliest phase, there's the highest frequency of quartz. Then there's the so-called phase P3, where there's the lowest quartz component within the later Stone Age or the Pleistocene later Stone Age, and an increase in hornfels. And then again, in the latest part of the later Stone Age, there's again an increase of quartz, and also this seemingly is more importance given to chert. In the final MSA, what you can see here, there's a high frequency, a high proportion of hornfels. And then in the late MSA, sandstone becomes of more importance, but quartz decreases or stays low in the late MSA. Concerning the tool corpus, you can see I like colors. So with here I show you the absolute numbers, and you can see that on the left side there's more blue and dark blue, which means modified blanks and splintered pieces. What I mean by modified blanks, just to clarify, in the later Stone Age or in robber context, there are often pieces that show marginal damage or retouch on the edges, but it's not clear if it's really a retouch, so if it's really intentionally repaired, transformed, or if it's due to use. So this term means, okay, there is something on the edge, but it's not clear if it's a retouch, so if it's intentional or it's due to use. What you can see here is that also in some of the spits there are no tools at all in the Pleistocene later Stone Age, in difference to the final MSA and late MSA, where there are always tools. So in the latest phase, you can see that there are mostly modified blanks, or here in this case, it's relatively clear that it's a retouch, and splintered pieces. The unit P3 is again different from the early and later Stone Age. Here there was a backed piece and different unifacial points, two of which you can see on this slide. In the earlier phase, again, it's dominated by modified blanks, splintered pieces, and denticulates. But in the phase bordering the final MSA, we found also backed pieces. Now, concerning the final MSA, you can see from the colors, there are backed pieces, bifacial pieces, and unifacial pieces. And most importantly, the iconic feature of the final MSA, I even made a star for that. You can see this hollow-based point. I agree with you that it doesn't, the hollow base is not yet super developed in that piece. It's a preform. You can also see that the point is not, or the tip is not yet completely shaped. So I interpreted it, or the techno-functional study I did is that I saw they already started to thin the base, but somehow here they could not get the triangulation, they could not get a tip, and so this preform was discarded like that. But we also have other typical features of the final MSA, as these different segments that you can see here. These two made on hornfels, this here on sandstone, and bifacial pieces, as you can see here. For the late MSA, I identified different or variability of unifacial points, then side scrapers on large products, and also rarely segments and bifacial pieces. So here you can see different unifacial points. On top, it's rather thick points with a short tip, and then on bottom, rather thin points that have a very elongated tip. Here, some examples of this side scrapers on large products. And then here one very large segment and a bifacial tool. Now, concerning the blank production, what I found is that in the Pleistocene LSA, especially in the early phase, there's a focus on bipolar products. I mean, here blanks and cores that show features of introducing an anvil, so of bipolar and anvil technology. This disappears completely in the final MSA, but in the final MSA, the blanks show a lot of shaping activities. And then in the late MSA, you can see here, the shaping goes down and there is a little bit of bipolar products. So first, to describe the cores or the reduction sequences in the later Stone Age that involve bipolar technique. What you can see here are typical bipolar cores made on quartz or bipolar reduced pieces. I made a differentiation between bipolar percussion, and you will see on the next slide, anvil percussion. So this means in this case, the core or the blank that they chose to reduce was placed on an anvil, as you can see here, and then actually it was actually napped then. So this is what I mean by bipolar percussion, this actual percussion, and this has as a result this typical cores with this plan parallel or triangular shapes, and no platforms actually, or this linear and chisel-like platforms. These pieces show contre-coup most of the time on the basal part, or show radial fissures or crushing, and the products are elongated elements. Then for the quartz, we found also pieces that fit within conic or frontal cores. They are most of the time flat in the longitudinal and transversal convexities because of exhaustion, most likely. They have platforms. They have most of the time plane platforms. There's a long or longer continuous reduction. There is a preparation phase in some cases that we still can see, so an attachment of lateral bladelets to control the convexities. But some or a lot of these cores show traces of crushing at the basal part. So this dotted line should indicate that on the drawing. So we assume that either a combination of freehand percussion or anvil percussion took place. So what we mean with anvil percussion in this case is not this actual movement, but a more oblique movement or slanted movement. So the anvil was not really to help, so to say, make the core explode, but rather to fixate or control the core. Our anvil hypothesis, or what we observed for the cores and blanks, was then also confirmed by this finding. It's a sandstone slab. So sandstone is, I didn't mention that before, but the rock shelter itself is made out of sandstone. So it was really ultra locally available. And this piece, this slab shows here, you can see that here, this packing marks. And our useware specialist told us that this means, or it's very likely that here a contact with a hard mineral material took place. So either this was used as a hammer or what I rather want to believe as an anvil. Because of this discovery of the importance of anvil flaking and these different kinds of anvil flaking involved, so the actual percussion and the oblique or slanted percussion, we started an experimental program. You can see here the form we developed from the literature, and then we made different experiments. Here you can see this bipolar percussion, so this actual percussion and the results of it. This very beautiful, in the literature they are called lemon-sliced flakes. Our nepper, who is Dr. Morgan-Roussel, he calls them mandarin-shaped pieces. I like this term more, but yeah, it's like that. Here you can see him placing the core on the anvil, but in a slightly or in an oblique way to control. And here we even included or involved clamps. And what is the aim of this whole program is to see if there are different stigmata, or if we can find significant differences between the one anvil flaking versus the other. And also to see which reduction sequence or which operational sequence is best for or most efficient to produce bladelets. And I can tell you already now, what we found is that with the clamps, it's the easiest, or let's say like that, we succeeded mostly with the clamps to produce bladelets. But there are also other cores or core types on the other raw materials. As you can see here, most of them are conic cores. They are made on sandstone, which is up here, and hornfels. It's a single platform cores with a semi-prismatic shape and plain platforms. I'm very proud of this one because it's a refit that clearly shows that the last product that they wanted to gain was a triangular or a pointed element, pointed bladelet, and it totally failed. It totally was a hinge, unfortunately, for the person. Coming to the laminar products, most of them are made on quartz. The bladelet proportion within the blanks is mainly between 11 and 18%. Again, unit P3 is different. We identified independent blade production, which you can see here, faceted platforms. And here, this is a very beautiful plunging blade on sandstone. Yes, within the bladelets, we observed, again, mostly on the quartz, freehand percussion, bipolar percussion, and anvil percussion. Anvil percussion is notified here with the arrows. In the final, so this was the blank production for the latest Stone Age. In the final MSA, we didn't find, as I mentioned before, bipolar production at all. But what we found is shaping and typical shaping flakes. Most of them are made on hornfels. Unfortunately, most of the pieces are fragmented. So some of them don't show the characteristic features that are related to the platform, to the proximal end, but they all show a typical curvature and other characteristics that make them at least atypical shaping flakes. Within the blanks larger than 20 millimeters, we found a lot of early shaping and advanced shaping. And then we also looked through the small fraction, and there we found a lot of final shaping elements. Concerning the cores, there are very few cores, only 4 actually, and 2 comply with Levallois-like cores. They are both made on quartz. They show preparation, surface preparation. They are not faceted, but they show this nice preferential flake that was removed as a last product. And then the other 2 cores are made on sandstone slabs. They used the narrow side, and in a very short reduction sequence, in this case, here's the natural part. Then there's one flake that you can see from the other lateral, creating a kind of ridge or a crest for a convergent element, and then this one is the end product. Yeah, so this is a very short reduction sequence that we observed on 2 cores. Yeah, and to sum now these main results up, in the latest Stone Age, we see different trends. We see in the earliest phase that there's a high exploitation of quartz. Bladelet production is important, and a great importance of bipolar technique. And in, let's say, at the very early stage, also backed pieces occur in the sequence. In the unit P3, there's the lowest proportion of quartz within the latest Stone Age sequence. There's more hornfels. What we observed is an independent blade production next to the bladed productions and the production of different unifacial points. And then in the later phase, again, the quartz increases. There's chert seemingly more present. Bladed production is important. Bipolar technique is very important. A low tool component and mainly modified bladelets. In the final MSA, there's a strong exploitation of hornfels. There's a strong emphasis on the exploitation or on the shaping of products. So there are a lot of shaping flakes. The tool frequency is higher than in the later Stone Age, and the tool corpus consists of hollow-based points, backed elements, and bifacial tools. The late MSA is a little bit of a mystery still, but it shows a higher proportion of sandstone. The tool corpus includes these side scrapers made on larger blanks and a variety of unifacial points. There are no cores present so far. And what we can see, what I didn't mention before, but the few blanks that show characteristics or that are more diagnostic are thick flakes with faceted platforms. Now coming to a regional chronocultural comparison, was a paper published this year by Bada et al. And they could show that these hollow-based points first, or the final MSA first defined at Sibudu Cave, also occur at another important site within KwaZulu-Natal at Umbelibeli. And of course, as this was described before, Umhlatuzana fits very well with the hollow-based points, but it shows also other shared characteristics. So next to the manufacture of hollow-based points, there's the strong emphasis on shaping and the high proportion of shaping flakes, the manufacture of bifacial pieces, and the presence of segments. So to conclude, what can we say? The upper part of this so-called, or by Kaplan called, MSA-LSA transition shows an increased use of quartz, importance of bipolar technology, and focus on microlithic elements, so indicating rather typical LSA features. The lower part yet of this MSA-LSA transition exhibits drastic differences in terms of raw material selection, shaping, and tool corpus that fit, as I just showed, perfectly with the final MSA defined in KwaZulu-Natal. And this rather points to an abrupt change than a gradual transition. What we see concerning the geoarchaeology, there is no erosional event, so there's no sedimentary hiatus. This can be excluded as an explanation. So potential explanations are either temporal gap in the sequence, a rapid innovation, or population replacement. So to wrap up, the final MSA assemblage of Umhlatuzana shares striking similarities with Sibudu Cave and Umbelibeli, reinforcing this is a distinct tradition. And on a more general level, the sequence of Umhlatuzana, together with other well-documented sequences such as Sibudu Cave and Umbelibeli, have the potential to provide insights into higher resolution chronocultural dynamics on a regional scale. And with this, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Viola, for this really nice talk. And what did I press here? I'm sure there are some questions either here from the audience or online. So Gerhard is the first one, I guess. Can you just say slowly and again the real name?
Umhlatuzana.
It's completely different. I have a question. You said there's an abrupt change in the final MSA. Does it mean it's another population coming in?
That would be one explanation, yes. Good question. So, okay, maybe let's start like that. I didn't put this slide on purpose because it's another question, I thought, but there is at the moment a big discussion, or is actually since 2012, there's Border Cave, and Border Cave is much older than all the LSA we know so far. We have dates for Umhlatuzana, which are problematic because of the issues with the dose rates, or let's say they're not yet, there's not everything solved around them yet. But the new paper also published by Bada et al. This year, they could show that they're in the surroundings of border caves, so in Eswatini and around this, all the other sites, later Stone Age sites, date far below, or date much younger than 30,000. So what they say is that border cave is an outlier. Something appeared there and didn't take up for some reason. But the dates in Umhlatuzana now show they are older than 30,000. This seems to be the case. So I think this question is still very how should I say? There's a lot to debate still because we don't have enough sites. That's problematic. But I would not say, as this paper now suggests, that border cave, or that this is out of the question, that there is an earlier uptake of later Stone Age, and then there might be another one. So I hope this at least gives some. Yeah.
Good. Are there any other questions from here?
Thank you. Thank you for the talk. It was very interesting. So my question is, you see there were the technology changes along with materials. So what is the link between the change in technology and the change in material? Does it, I mean, is it driven by availability of material, or did they they went actively to find a new material because the technology was changed?
This is a good question. So this could be one explanation, that there's a different kind of mobility, a different kind of land use. But for what we know at the moment is that all the raw materials are available within the range of the site. We don't, or let's say like that, let's put it more precisely. We know that the sandstone is directly from the site, and we assume that the quartz and the hornfels mostly come from the river. They have pebble polished cortex, water rolled cortex. So we assume that, but we don't know if they had also other sources, or because there are some hornfelses that have a different cortex, and we don't know yet where the source, or maybe we never know, but we don't know yet where they are. So we cannot prove that.
Can I make another question? Okay. Is there any like zoological material related to these technologies? And I mean, could the technology be related to a hunting behavior, or which preys were they?
That's a very good question, but this is really the problem with Umhlatuzana. There's no bone preservation, no organic preservation whatsoever. And this is also, again, just because this is such a hotly debated topic at the moment. In border cave, there is a very good organic preservation. So the first definition of the later Stone Age also relates to the organic materials, and we don't have that, so we cannot make this kind of statement. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's the water as well. Irini could explain that better, but yes, yeah. But Sibudu, for example, is also sandstone rock shelter. Cave is just a historical name, and their bone preservation is up to the Still Bay and even later. Yeah.
Good. I don't know. Is there a question from the online audience? I don't see any thing in the chat, at least, showing up. If I may ask, sorry, I'm just moving over here a little bit because of the light. When you see these changes in raw material, a little bit connecting to the question before, do you see any changes in, let's say, the amount of cutting edge that is produced from those raw materials, or is that more or less the same between hornfels and quartz and so on? No, I would say we didn't calculate. I could calculate it, but yes, I would say in the with quartz, as they produce much smaller elements, which
then have a much more, I think, have a much higher rate of edge to mass. So I would assume that in the later Stone Age has a much higher edge used, or edge cutting edge possibility than in the final MSA.
So does this also correlate somehow with blank to core ratios and so on, or tool to core ratios? Just thinking of, and you showed us some of that, but there are normally some really nice measures to quantify some of those statements.
Yes, it's just that the sample is so small. I calculated that, and for the later Stone Age, it's very nice because we have a lot of cores and a lot of blanks with that. But in the final and late MSA, there are really almost no cores, and I think this also relates to there is a lot of emphasis on the shaping. So I think they manage with the shaping. Yeah.
Are there any further questions? If there are no other questions, do you think, I mean, you didn't really say anything, what's happening, population replacement or anything else? What's, if I might ask, what's your kind of gut feeling, what's going on here?
There is, so this is a general statement, more general statement, then I will come to maybe more my opinion. There is a technological fragmentation. It seems that there is more regionally going on in the early LSA, and then in the Rawberg, it seems to be a subcontinental technocomplex. I can just say from what I saw in Umhlatuzana is that there is no transition to what happened before. It's a clear cut in my opinion. So either it has to do with that we really face some big time gap, which the dates don't suggest at the moment, or other people.
Thank you. If there are no other questions, then I would like to thank you again very much for this talk. Thank you all here for joining us in person, as well as everybody in the audience joining us online. And I think our next talk is in January by Enter Spinapolice, if I'm right. And we're looking forward to seeing all of you then again. Thank you very much.